All right, testing, 1, 2, 3. Oh, look, I'm kind of shooting into the sun. Well, not, sorry, there's light on my screen. I think I'm recording. I think I've got a microphone in. I'm looking at my screen. It's got little lines to say it is. Kind of excited. This is my first time with this camera on a little tripod attached to a park bench seat. You can't see that your head is just attached to the rail at the back of a seat, but I feel like I'm sort of on a park bench overlooking a city and a river to the side there. Very peaceful place to be. It's kind of need that. I need this basis for this video, and obviously if you've clicked on this video it's because of the title, right? I don't have a title above me in the real world right now, but half an hour from now I'll probably go home and hopefully come up with a title for this. And I've just dawned on me, I've got horrible backlighting of full sunlight. I can actually see, oh my lord, yeah, okay, so I'm just a silhouette, hopefully a voice, and let's talk Microsoft. Oh my lord, actually let's not talk Microsoft, let's talk gaming. Because gaming matters, gaming's relevant. Microsoft aren't really, I mean they're relevant. They're relevant because they're so, in an attempt to make more money, which is what a business needs to do, they got into gaming. And for a while there, we were really happy with what they were doing for us in gaming. It was mostly because they were willing to lose money on the console hardware to get it in our house. We all found value at some point in the last 20 years with a Microsoft console, right? There's love there, right? There's water under that bridge, right? A lot of people have really put some effort and energy into building a relationship with a big multinational corporation, and they feel that multinational corporation has done them well because of all the joyous experiences they've had gaming on said company's hardware. Microsoft don't care about us. Microsoft don't care about making profit. We can say that's true of all businesses, right? That is true of all businesses. They need to make profit or they're gone. The argument is right now that if they haven't made profit, if they haven't grown one of their aspects of the business by 2026, they say that that's it. Now, that's just a bait heading. Right now, it's flavour of the moment, right? And Microsoft have these moments all the time through history where everyone turns on them for 24 hours and says how horrible they are and whatnot. And everyone with short memories forgets, right? Microsoft throws more money at us, gives us some sort of a deal or a bargain, free version of Windows or something, and we go, yay! Microsoft only play nice when they're losing. The only reason they didn't up the cost of gamespass was they were losing at the time when they last tried to jack it up, right? If Microsoft isn't losing, they're the most unethical, nasty bastards out there, right? They always have been. Nothing's different, right? Why they're saying if they haven't turned it around by 2026, right? It's just bait headings. They know they're going to turn it around in 2026 because what's the definition of growth, right? They got this loose, ambiguous term of what we need to do before we throw our cards down, right? They're going to get growth in 2026 with Game Pass because that's when the new Elder Scrolls is due, right? Just by the sheer fact that that game comes out, that metric will be met. That's a given. So it's not really newsworthy unless we try to hold them accountable for something for more than a minute, right? Which is the reality is, right? This is the real sick thing. It comes out of all these news headlines in the last 24 hours, 15 hours. Passing, this is from gamers' point of view, right? Because gamers care. If you're a gamer and you find out that Microsoft passed on Baldur's Gate 3 because it looked like a Stadia game, it's insulting at so many levels, right? Now, it all comes down to their reason for passing on it. It's not the fact that they passed on it. Paltry little 5 million or whatever, I don't know. I don't want to quote other people's information. I haven't read any headlines, right? I knew about this yesterday when it started to blow up. I thought I'm going to have to do this video because people are going to need to have this broken down to them in a way to not have it over-sensationalised and just to make sense of it for what it really is, right? So, the really offensive thing from a gamer's point of view is finding out that Microsoft, right, judging a game for its graphics, right, the platform that tries to sell itself as the most powerful and that graphics really matter and that we're going to deliver on that and then don't, they're just not connected with gaming. right? We all know that Baldur's Gate, if you're going to pass on Baldur's Gate, you just say, no, man, it's a hardcore RPG, and that traditionally they're 5% of the gaming market, and that gamespass needs to be inclusive for everyone that's going to be buying into it. We don't mind a few niche titles, but, big money on a title that might only be played by 5% of the player base isn't really a good investment, right? That's a legitimate statement. Passing on a game genre that typically has survived with the worst quality graphics because it's about story and immersion, passing on it because reasons. Oh dear. Yeah, the big beefs, right? For all the real reasons Xbox fans are hurt right now is that it's the schoolyard war. It's the whole, my dad's car's more powerful than your dad's car, or whatever. My football team's won more rounds this season than yours. Whatever, right? People want bragging rights, right? The reason people bought the Xbox Series X console, which was a paint-by-numbers console in regards to spec sheeting, mismatched bus speeds and stuff, yeah, sure, it generated a capability in the teraflops output that looked 20% bigger than the competitors, but the competitors' measly little 10 flops was highly customised architecture that would sort of auto-overclock itself, arguably, to keep that 10 teraflops loaded. And even if you didn't write software specific for that hardware, it was going to keep it absolutely maxed at those numbers. Whereas an Xbox, in order to squeeze the full 12 teraflops out of it, requires writing some operations in RAM to run at certain speeds and other buses to be dependent on slower speeds. And that's a real freaking nightmare. And just folding back to Baldur's Gate 3, I mean, that's the reason those mismatched bus speeds, I think, was affecting their ability to do split screen on the lesser console, the Series S. And so, having a whole range of architectures to have to write for, nothing gets optimised for. No one's going to squeeze 12 teraflops out. Well, third parties probably won't, without the budget or without the care. First parties, you would hope, might. There'll be a few impressive first party titles. So getting back to this schoolyard war of my dad's truck's bigger than your dad's truck. The reason why a lot of the Xbox fans care, and are really upset probably in the last 12 hours, is that the specs for future Xbox hardware have been revealed. And that is that Microsoft's been given so much pushback from its first party and some of its third party relations of like, don't you dare add another SKU, don't you dare weaponize and respond to a PS5 Pro, because if you do, you've just got too many SKUs, too much hardware to have to write and optimize for, that Microsoft know the developers will leave. So they can't release new hardware. And so when people look at all the future Microsoft consoles and realise it's just a die shrink, which allows more power efficiency, and that every aspect of the improved console really just relies on the new controllers, just then games have to be written for. Anyway, hopefully someone will come up with a library or a wrapper which will, maybe the controllers will have enough in common that a lot of the hardware calls for the PS5 cool controller features will just kind of seamlessly translate over to the new consoles. At the end of the day, peoples, you've got to be a lot less sensitive to this crazy console war that's going on. Microsoft are being held accountable right now. By all means, grill them, because they don't get the negative press very often. And there's way more outspoken Xbox fans by numbers. If you look at the attachment rate of PlayStation consoles to Xbox consoles, there's vastly more PlayStation users out there. I think they're all basically at home happy using their consoles, and they don't have to go on the internet unhappy and bored, having to write comments about the competitor's platform. You could say that you see it equally on the net, but when there's 4 times many PlayStation users as there are Xbox users, and the number of people complaining in the forums is about equal, kind of shows you who's more happy with their hardware, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. But what I do know is that it's not often Microsoft have their own fanboys turn on them. And so right now, if people are upset that the future Xbox hardware isn't going to be competitive against even PlayStation's current hardware, that's a fact. It doesn't matter, the console hardware just needs to be around for a long time, right? The only way console hardware serves customers well is if it's around for 7 years or so, and that multiple bits of software can get released on it, and that developers can really, really learn that particular silicon and optimize and squeeze the most out of it, right? And that's where it punches above its weight, if you will, over time. And the PS5 console is written from the ground up for the Unreal Engine 5. It had input in the silicon design for UE5, from the people at Epic prior to Unreal Engine 5 coming to market. Like they've changed a little bit there's like a feed forward and back cache. They've optimized a few bits of the not full RDNA 2 to make it a much better gaming box, and probably will allow feedback physics and a whole bunch of things in ways that, and I think Sony might even be using aspects of possibly Tempest for potential, not so much physics, but possibly ray tracing. There's a couple of patents there that they're looking at where they're going to use aspects of the silicon, which is not anywhere, there's nothing in the Xbox hardware to do it. Right, so anyway, they're pretending an Xbox Series S is anything special. It isn't. Oh, it's an Xbox Series X. It isn't. It is very unimpressive hardware. It's a standard PC hardware with nothing that impressive going on, right? And at the moment, we don't see load speed differences between PlayStation games and Xbox games because there's not second wave only written for PlayStation 5 software coming to market, right? But the drive speeds between them are significantly different. There is not the need for CPU overhead on the PlayStation drive to get it up to speed. So that might not have mattered in the first wave of software titles, right? Because there was CPU power to burn and the Xbox can. But if anybody wants to put out polished, optimized software for the Xbox Series X, and they're using all the CPU for its advanced features, hopefully, they don't want to lose CPU power to having to do software rendering of sound channels, or trying to match the complexities of the audio engine on the PlayStation. They don't want to lose CPU power trying to do decompression of drive blocks off the solid state drive, which is what they basically have to do, if they want to try and match the PS5 speed. So what we found in a lot of Ubisofts and Electronic Arts, those companies are very much in bed with Microsoft. Of course they are, because Microsoft's got Game Pass, and those companies, they don't value their software. Within 6 months of those companies putting out a piece of software, they value it at about half the value of it, and they just devalue it just to sell it further. Right? Those companies are the Darth of the gaming industry, and Microsoft is just so in bed with them, because it's one of those sorts of companies are helping them make Games Pass affordable in a way to hopefully make it an attractive proposition. But to say that those software companies are quite happy putting out optimized for Xbox type software, which is little things like if you zip your software that you're trying to load, if you zip it down, you can force the CPU to do a decompression stage on it when you're trying to load it from the drive. And so if you force a CPU decompression stage and then run the Xbox CPU just that little bit faster, you can come up with a ton of scenarios where loading the file from the drive is more or less the same, but then the actual mathematical decompression of it by the CPU, you can actually make it in a lot of scenarios that the Xbox looks nearly equal in load time to the PlayStation, or in some situations potentially faster. If you're working with 4K files that are notoriously slow loading off any solid state drive, and then have them again be decompressed in CPU. There's a lot of ways where you can bog down systems. And so any software companies in bed with Microsoft, certainly in that first 18 months of the console war this generation, have fed into that. When second and third wave software comes by, it's highly optimized, the PlayStation's just going to pull away from the Xbox so hard and so fast. And so the real threat in the market right now, which Microsoft has to deal with, is convincing consumers to stick with them if the press is saying by 2026 they're going to be gone. Because who's going to invest in an ecosystem that may or may not falter? Now, we know they're not going to falter. We know that they'll just reinvent themselves and do something with all their IPs they've bought and stuff, and that the reality is, even by their own definition, they're not going to fail in 2026 to achieve growth in Games Pass, because Bethesda are going to release the Elder Scrolls, right? That's what they're claiming. The only reason they're saying they're releasing new Elder Scrolls in 2026, and we finally get that information right after the launch of Starfield's not selling well enough. How do you force people to buy Starfield? Don't have them wait for the new Elder Scrolls game. Just make them buy this one. It's the closest they're going to get to it. We know they're doing that. Funny how Starfield's had massive price drops within a week of coming out. Baldur's Gate hasn't dropped 5 cents. It's been on sale for 4 years, and 3 years of that early access time, or it's been on sale for quite a while. Hasn't dropped 5 cents. It's been at full price the whole time. It's a niche game, doesn't even have a physical release. There's no cost in making media to sell it. Right? That's a profitable game. You can't compare Baldur's Gate versus Starfield. Starfield has been generalised to be playable by anybody. Baldur's Gate 3, Baldur's Gate, this was the 5% of the gaming market. The hardcore niche RPGs, man, nobody plays them. Baldur's Gate 3 is the evolution of them. You don't compare sales numbers of a hardcore niche RPG versus a generalised, made-to-work-for-everybody game. And yes, Starfield is that, right? We know that Morrowind was a little bit more hardcore than Oblivion, and Oblivion was a little bit more hardcore than Skyrim, and every time Bethesda have dumbed down the RPG, the in-depth RPG systems, and made it easier to adoption of the game, they've had massively increased sales success. So, of course, Starfield had to be something for everyone. Of course, it's going to be dumbed down to be the most generic game of all of them, to allow you to do everything, something for everyone. You can't compare Starfield versus Baldur's Gate. They are not the same genre. They are not the same type of game. They both might have role-playing aspects. One is a hardcore niche RPG. One is your standard walk around and enjoy sandboxing. Yeah, casual, enjoy it, game. Right? The fact if Baldur's Gate is selling well and Starfield isn't, and mate, Starfield should be outselling Baldur's Gate at a ratio of 5-1. Even with the fact that there's 4 or 5-1 ratio of PlayStations versus Xboxes in the market or whatever, right? For whatever reasons we would think that the numbers seem fair, nah, man, Starfield, based on the fact that it's a known company putting out a type of game that we're all familiar with and whatnot. I mean, you could say, oh, Baldur's Gate has that up its sleeve because it's a sequel to a game that has been out, whereas Starfield is technically a new intellectual property. Nah, man, everybody knows what Starfield is. Starfield has been pre-spoken about and has been keen, has been wanted to be received by people for a long time. Baldur's Gate, people could have been playing it years ago, right? Those sales numbers aren't really coming into the current sales numbers, are they? So poor old Baldur's Gate has just had an uphill battle non-stop every step of the way. It's probably got nothing to do with the current stuff with Microsoft, but yeah, look, Starfield didn't do it for them. They needed it too. They're going to try and do everything they can to try and get you onto Starfield, which will be things like the new Bethesda game after this won't come out for many, many years. And if you love us, buy this game and keep it. Don't refund it, otherwise we're gone. Right? If you refund it, we won't have sales numbers good enough in a month's time to show everybody this game is selling. Right? That's the whole reason it's on sale right now. They got to get those sales numbers up because a month from now, it's the keeping up with the Joneses. They quote really good sales numbers in that first month, and everyone goes, oh, maybe I should get that. I've got to keep up with the Joneses. Right. Anyway, it'll just be interesting to see how much, because I believe the Microsoft Press channels own the internet. The people who like the Asian consoles are pretty honourable in their marketing. They don't overpromise and underdeliver. They don't do underhand strategies. As much as if you're in the Xbox camp, you probably believe they do because you listen to Xbox media. It'll be interesting how the world handles the next 24 hours or so. But I think that the people on the Xbox channels really need to take their blinkers off, douse themselves in a bucket of cold water, have that reality wake-up check, and then seriously take inventory of the fact that Microsoft is the evilest corporation out there, and they are destroying gaming, and that anytime you support them, that's a vote against gaming. Full stop. Full stop. If you like gaming, buy a Nintendo. Maybe buy a Sony. Buy your games on iPad or Android or whatever, Go get the games. It's all about the games. Gamers play games. They don't care about frame rates. Gamers care about story and gameplay, right? If you're worried about frame rate, if you're worried about resolution, you're a platformist. You like technology. That's great. That's a hobby unto itself. I like technology and gaming. Yeah, I incorporate the two. I like running benchmarks and trying to tweak my settings and whatnot. Not everybody does. Some people just like playing games. Yeah, story and immersion. Anyway, that's a story. I hope it's been immersive. Otherwise, enjoy Australian, I can't say outback, National Park. Top of the morrow to you.